God is non-binary.
All right, let's see it.
The Bible refers to God using masculine pronouns 900 times. It also refers to him as the Father and the Son, not the mother and the daughter. And when God revealed himself to us in human form, he took the form of Jesus Christ, a man.
So 3 things here to begin. God is overwhelmingly, but not unilaterally, represented as male presenting in the Bible. But it's also a lot more complex than that, and not in a way that's going to serve this creator's rhetorical goals. And if you'd like a great discussion of the complex and the multifaceted and sometimes conflicting way that the biblical authors project their concept of God's gender and sex and sexuality, I would highly recommend Francesca Stavrakopoulos' recent book, God and Anatomy. 2, to say that God is non-binary does not require that the Bible anywhere represent God as a mother or a sister. To say someone is gender non-binary does not necessarily mean that they identify as both male and female. Now, for some people, that refers to gender fluidity, a moving back and forth between the ends of the spectrum of gender. For other people, gender non-binary refers to a third gender that should be added to the traditional gender binary. For other people, non-binary means they transcend the category of gender altogether and don't identify with any gender, which is something that this creator is going to argue in the second half of this video. Third thing, identifying as non-binary at its root is an acknowledgement that the concept of gender is a social construct. It is a conventionalized way of thinking and talking about and assigning social roles based on assigned sex. And biological sex itself is not a strict binary, but does have some overlap at the center of that spectrum. And so to identify as non-binary is to challenge the assignment, the imposition of those roles upon someone based on their assigned biological sex at birth. And that's just a physical reality. That is an indisputable fact that gender and gender roles and the way we treat people based on the perception of their gender is entirely conceptual. It is entirely constructed. It is just something that we have decided to do. And some people are just saying, I don't like those roles. I'm not going to be forced into these behaviors and these treatments that you have decided to agree are how we're going to treat people and how people are supposed to behave. So there is no scientific, empirical, factual basis for rejecting anyone's identification as gender non-binary, because gender is a social construct to begin with.
But let's just throw all that out the window. God isn't a human, so he cannot have human limitations like being male or female or now non-binary.
So this creator has tied themselves up in rhetorical knots by trying to have their cake and eat it too, because they're presenting 2 arguments here. Only one of these arguments can stand. If one of them is right, the other is wrong. They began their rejection of identifying God as non-binary by saying God is not non-binary. God's a dude. The Bible says so. And then they said, we're throwing the Bible out the window. The Bible's wrong. God is not a dude. God transcends human categories and therefore cannot be reduced to human categories. The Bible reduces God to human categories. So which of these arguments is right? Does it mean something to identify God as a dude, or does it not? If it means something to identify God as a dude, then the second argument, this philosophical construct that was developed after the Bible was complete, that God transcends these human categories, that's false, that's wrong. It means something that God is a dude. And if we must accept the Bible's representation of the gender, the sex, and the sexuality of God, 1, it conflicts with itself in many places. 2, this creator is not going to like what he finds. If it doesn't mean anything that God is a dude, then it is equally as valid to identify God as non-binary or as female as to identify God as male. In fact, it would be more accurate to identify God as non-binary, because to say God transcends human categories and the gender binary fits within the concept of gender non-binary. It does not fit within the concept of God as male or female.
Saying God is non-binary is not a very smart statement, to say the least.
I think it would help you to be a little more reflective and a little more self-critical in the future.